I did not mean to laugh. I truly did not. His face did a thing, and my brain just gave up. In my defense, I had been awake since before the dawn bell. I had not eaten, and I was holding a clean cloth to the jaw of the most dangerous man alive, while 4 of his warriors watched me do it. A stronger woman would have fainted in a tidy, respectful manner and been carried out. I would like that noted somewhere, for the record, by someone kinder than the people in that room. It happened like this. Old Hester, who had been the king's healer since before the king was a king, had put her hip out reaching for a jar of dried yarrow she was too proud to ask anyone to fetch. So when the summons came up from the great hall, the king had taken a wound at the border and would have it seen to before the noon council there was no one to send but me, the stillroom girl, the Omega, the lowest thing in a keep full of high things, who at 23 had washed more linen than I had spoken sentences to anyone above my rank. You will not look at his face, Hester told me from her bed, gripping my wrist with a strength her hip did not have. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will do the work, and you will leave. He is not a man you make a second impression on, child. There is no second. I nodded. I meant it. I am, by nature, a woman who keeps her head down and her thoughts to herself, because my thoughts, said aloud, have a way of rearranging a room in ways that do not benefit me. Then I went down into the great hall, and the king of the Iron Territories was sitting in a shaft of cold morning light with his shirt open at the shoulder and a gash along his collarbone, and he was the most still person I had ever seen. I had heard the songs, of course. Everyone has heard the songs. Halvar of the Iron Hold, who took the throne in blood at 19 and had not lost a stretch of ground since. The scar was in all of them, the long pale seam that ran from his brow down across his cheek to the corner of his jaw, the mark the bards swore he took, slaying the rival Alphadation with the man's own blade. They sang it like a victory. They sang it like the scar was a crown he wore on the wrong part of his head. In the songs it was terrible and glorious. In the hall, up close, with the light on it, it was just a scar on a tired man, and the man it belonged to was holding himself so rigidly still that I understood, all at once and with my whole body, exactly why grown warriors went quiet when he entered a room. I knelt. I did the work. I cleaned the gash at his collarbone, a clean cut, deep but honest, the kind that heals if you keep it from souring, and I did not look at his face, and he did not look at mine, and it was all going beautifully. And then his warriors started a low conversation about the border, and one of them said something about the council running long, and the king, without moving anything else, without so much as turning his head, let one muscle near the old scar pull tight. I do not know how to explain what his face did then. The scar tugged, and his brow came down, and the whole fearsome legend of him collapsed for half a second into the exact expression of a man being told there is more work after this work. A put-upon, long-suffering, deeply sulking look. The look of someone's older brother who has been asked to carry one more thing up one more stair. The king of the Iron Territories, who had killed his way to a throne, made the face of a boy told the chores were not finished. And I laughed. It came out of me before I knew it was coming. One short, bright, surprised sound. And it landed in the great hall like a dropped plate. Everything stopped. I clapped my hand over my mouth, which is a thing that helps precisely nothing once the sound is already loose in the room. One of the warriors made a noise I can only describe as a man swallowing his own heart. Another took a step that was not toward me, and not away, the indecision of someone who did not know whether he was about to witness a death. And the king went still, not the stillness from before. That had been the stillness of a man holding a wound closed. This was different. This was the whole great weight of him turning, slowly, until he was looking at me, really looking, the way you look at a sound in the dark when you are deciding what made it, and going quiet in a way that emptied the hall of air. I have since learned that there are men in that keep who would rather be struck than be looked at by Halvar the way he looked at me in that moment. I did not know that yet. I only knew that I had laughed at the Alpha King's scar, and that he had gone very, very quiet, and that I was, by any reasonable measure, in enormous trouble. Forgive me, my voice came out steadier than the rest of me, which felt like a betrayal by my own throat. You're the wound. I have not finished. May I finish? He did not answer. He kept looking at me. The scar caught the light when he tilted his head, just slightly, the way you tilt your head at a thing you cannot account for. I was not laughing at the scar. It was true, and it sounded, the instant it left me, exactly like the thing a person says when they were laughing at the scar. His mouth opened. I braced for the order. The dungeon, the road, the back of someone's hand. I had time, in that little gap, to be furious at Hester's hip and my own empty stomach, and the particular cruelty of a face that does a thing like that in a room where you are not allowed to laugh. Finish, he said. That was all. One word, low, rough at the edges. Finish, so I finished. My hands did not shake, which I count among the small miracles of my life. I bound the gash. I tied it clean. I gathered my things, and I left without being told I could, which was its own small treason, and the whole way back up to the still room I waited to be stopped. No one stopped me. That, I would come to understand, was the most frightening thing of all. A punishment given is a thing with edges. You know its shape, you can survive it and be done. A punishment withheld by a man like that just sits in the room with you, waiting, growing teeth. I should tell you the part I did not understand until much later, because you are going to wonder about it the way I wondered about it. Lying awake that night, listening for boots on the stair that never came. You are going to wonder why he went quiet instead of angry, why a man who had put down challenges with the flat of his hand let a stillroom omega laugh at the most famous mark on his body and only said finish. I wondered it for a long time. I got it completely wrong. I want you to know that now, so that when I tell you the truth of it, you will trust that I did not see it coming any more than you will. But that is ahead of us. First, you have to understand about the wolf. The wolf started coming on the second night. I lived in a narrow room off the stillroom, barely wider than the cot in it, with a door that did not latch properly, and never had. On the second night, after the great hall, I woke to a sound at that door, a soft, insistent, scraping nudge, the sound of something large and patient pushing a door that would not quite give. I lay very still. We were a keep of wolves. Sounds at the door in the dark were not, as a rule, things you opened the door to investigate. In the morning there was a wooden spoon on my threshold. A good spoon. A kitchen spoon, the long kind they stir the great pots with, laid neatly across the gap in the door as though it had been arranged. I picked it up, looked up and down the empty corridor, and put it on my shelf, because I did not know what else to do with a gift from no one. The next morning, it was a single boot. The morning after that, a length of blue ribbon I recognised from the seamstress's basket, and a pine cone, and, I am not making this up, one entire smoked fish, laid out with the same care as the spoon, like an offering at a very confused shrine. By the fifth morning, I had a small collection on my shelf and a growing certainty that I was losing my mind. By the sixth, I caught him. I woke before the bell and opened the door fast, and there in the grey corridor was an enormous black wolf the size of a yearling colt, with a ragged linen napkin in his jaws, and one paw lifted mid-step, frozen in the precise posture of a creature who has been caught. We looked at each other. I knew whose wolf it was, There was only one wolf in the Iron Territories that size, with that particular pale seam running through the fur from brow to jaw, the same line, the same place. The scar was on the wolf too. Of course it was. He set the napkin down on my threshold very gently. Then he sat, filling the entire corridor, and looked at me with an expression of such open, hopeful, uncomplicated pride in the napkin that I had to put my hand over my mouth again. "You cannot keep doing this," I told the king's wolf. "He will have my head. Take your fish back." The wolf did not take his fish back. The wolf, I was learning, did not take anything back. The wolf had decided something, and the man it belonged to had no say in the matter at all. And somewhere above us in that keep was the most powerful person in the territories, waking up each morning to discover that his own body had spent the night courting the stillroom girl with stolen cutlery. If you have ever laughed alone in a corridor before, dawn at a situation you cannot tell a single living soul about, then you already know me better than most of the people in that keep did. And if you are enjoying this, if you have ever loved a story where the most powerful person in the room is quietly losing a war with his own heart, then do me one small kindness and follow along, because it gets so much worse for him before it gets better, and I would hate for you to miss it. Now, where was I? The napkin. I kept the napkin. I am not made of stone. What I did not understand was why. Not the wolf. The wolf made a kind of mad sense to me even then. The bond is old magic, and it does what it does. But the man. The man avoided me with a thoroughness that took real effort in a keep that size. He took the long corridor to the council so as not to pass the stillroom. He sent Edric, his second, to ask after Hester's hip rather than come himself. He went, in short, to a great deal of trouble to be nowhere near me, while his wolf went to a great deal of trouble to be nowhere else. A man does not arrange his whole day around avoiding a woman he has not thought about. I noticed that. I notice things. It is the one talent my low birth left me. I just did not yet know what I was noticing. Lady Sigun knew. Lady Sigun noticed everything, and unlike me, she had the rank to do something about it. She came to the stillroom herself, which high-born she-wolves did not do. On the morning, the spoon and fish business became common gossip below stairs. She was beautiful, in the way a blade is beautiful, all clean lines and cold use, daughter of the Hollowmere pack whose warriors the king needed for the eastern border, and she had been raised from the cradle on the understanding that the empty chair beside the wolf throne was hers. Everyone understood it. It was less a betrothal than a fact of the weather. "You are the one," she said, not a question. She lifted the blue ribbon off my shelf between two fingers, the way you lift something that has been in the gutter. The one his beast has been making a fool of him over. I am the one who changes the dressings, my lady, when Hester cannot. Hester will be well soon. She set the ribbon down. She looked at me the way you look at a stain you intend to have removed. Then there will be no reason for you in the hall. None at all. You understand me. A wolf can be confused by a smell, by proximity, by a clever girl who makes herself useful at the right bedside. It passes. It always passes. And the people who encourage the confusion are not remembered fondly when it does. I understood her. I understood her completely. I have no designs on the king. That at least was the truth. I had designs on a full night's sleep and a door that latched. The wolf chooses where it sits. I did not teach it to steal spoons. No, she agreed, and smiled, and it did not reach anything. But you laughed at him. In his own hall. And he let you. She let that hang there, because she was clever, and she knew it was the strangest part. He does not let people. Do think about why that might be, stillroom girl, and then think about what happens to the answer when I am Luna. She left. I stood among my little shelf of stolen treasures, and I thought about why a man like that lets a woman like me laugh at him and walk out unpunished. And for the first time the question had a shape I did not like, because the only answer I could find was one I was not allowed to want. I want to be honest with you about that, because it matters for everything that comes after. I did not fall for the king because his wolf brought me a fish. I am not so easily bought. I have priced fish. I fell, if that is even the word, and I am still not certain it is. The day I finally got close enough to him to understand that the stillness was not pride. It happened in the library, which was the one place in the keep he could not seem to make himself avoid me, because it was the one place I was not supposed to be. I went there for the books. Hester's recipes were going soft in my memory, and the old healing texts were locked behind the king's library door, which, and I noticed this, I noticed it the first time, was always left open. A finger's width. Every evening. A door that heavy does not drift open on its own. Someone opened it, a little, and left it, every night, and I am ashamed of how long it took me to wonder who the open door was for. He was there the third evening, in the dark beyond the candle, and I froze in the doorway with a stolen book against my chest. "You may take it," he said before I could flee. He did not look up from his own page. "You take one every third night. You think no one keeps count. I think the great library of the Ironhold will survive my reading about fevers." Then I closed my eyes, because that was not at all the tone one took with a king, and Hester's voice in my head was already composing my eulogy. But he did not rise, or summon, or do any of the terrible things. He turned a page he was not reading. The candle moved on the long pale seam of the scar. "You did not flinch," he said. "To the book, not to me. In the hall, when you laughed. Everyone flinches. The brave ones pretend they are not flinching, which is worse. You laughed, and then you were sorry you had laughed, and there was nothing else underneath it. No fear. I have been trying to remember the last time someone was simply not afraid of me, and I cannot. I should have said something soothing and small and correct. Instead, I heard myself say, "You made a face." He looked up. "You did." I was already in the river, and there is no climbing out of a river. I was not laughing at that, the scar. I would never. "You made a face, like a man told there is more counsel after the council, and I had not eaten, and it undid me." That is the whole of it. I have been wanting to say so for 9 days, and there has been no one to say it to who would not have me drowned for the saying. For a long moment he was completely still again, and I thought, here it is, here is the bottom of it. Then the king of the Iron Territories put his hand over the lower part of his face, over the scar, the way you cover a smile you have decided no one is allowed to see. And his shoulders moved once, and I realized with a kind of vertigo that I had made him laugh, and that he was furious about it, and that he was not going to be able to stop it, and that he hated that more than he had ever hated anything I could put a name to. "Go to bed, Wren," he said from behind his hand, and it was the first time he had used my name, and the door, I noticed, he did not tell me to close. So now you know the shape of it. A man who arranges his entire kingdom to be unafraid of him, and cannot, until a stillroom girl laughs at his face and means nothing by it. I thought, walking back through the dark keep, that I had finally understood him. I had not. I had understood the smallest, kindest part. The rest of him, the part the scar truly belonged to, I learnt 3 nights later, and it broke something in me that has not gone back the way it was. The wolf brought it to my door. I knew at once it was different. The spoon, the boot, the fish, those had been laid out with a kind of clumsy pride. This, he set down without pride at all. He set it down the way you set down something you are not sure you are allowed to be carrying, and then he did not sit and look at me hopefully. He backed away down the corridor and was gone before I had it in my hands. It was a small wolf carved from pale wood, worn smooth at the edges by years of being held. A child's toy. Old, loved to the point of being almost faceless, and scratched into the flat of its base, in the uneven letters of a hand just learning them, was a name that was not the king's. Astrid. I did not sleep. In the morning I took it to Hester, who was up and limping by then, and I put it in her hands and watched the years go across her face. "Where did you get this?" she said, very quietly. His wolf left it at my door. She sat down. She held the little carved wolf the way you hold a bird that has stopped struggling. "Then he has chosen you," she said, "and he does not even know yet that he has, because the man would never. The wolf knows. The wolf always knows first." She turned the toy over. Astrid was his sister. Younger, 9 years gone. "The songs, said Hester, "are a lie I helped to tell." She looked up at me, and there was an old grief in her, the kind that has been carried so long it has become part of the spine. "The scar is not from Dacian. The king has never once, in 9 years, corrected a single bard, and that is the truest thing I can tell you about him. He was 20. There was a rogue in the high forest, mad with the wasting sickness, and it came down on the spring camp at night, and it went for the children first the way the sick ones do. He put himself between it and his sister. He took it across the face. He killed it. And it was not enough, because she had already been bitten, and the wasting cannot be healed, and I could not." She stopped. She pressed her lips together. He held her for 3 days while it took her. He has worn the scar of the night he failed to save her ever since, and let every drunk in every hall sing it to him as a victory, because the truth is, the one thing the King of the Iron Territories cannot say out loud. I sat down across from her. I thought about a man going still in a great hall while a stranger laughed at the worst night of his life and called it nothing. He let me laugh at it. "Child." Hester put the little wolf into my hands and folded my fingers around it. "He has been waiting 9 years for someone to look at that mark and not see the dead girl in it. You laughed. You saw a sulking man who was hungry for his dinner. Do you understand what that was to him? You are the only person alive who has ever made that scar feel like a mark on his face instead of a stone on his heart." Her eyes were wet and fierce. "The wolf brought you Astrid. He is asking you to hold the worst of it. Be very careful what you do with that, Wren, because there is no one in this keep who will forgive you if you are careless with a king's only grief." I was not careless with it. But I want to be honest, I was not given the chance to be gentle with it either, because 3 days later, Lady Sigun made her move, and she made it where it would do the most damage, in front of every pack the king had summoned to the autumn naming, with the carved wolf already missing from my shelf. She had taken it. I know that now. She had someone take it the night before, along with one other small thing, and she had laid her trap with the patience of a woman who had been promised a throne since the cradle, and did not intend to be embarrassed out of it by a girl who smelled of yarrow. The great hall was full. Every banner, every high seat, the Hollowmere warriors the king needed, and the king's own packhand. In a knot near the back where the low folk were permitted to watch the naming, me, I had not wanted to come. The wolf had come to my door at dawn and herded me toward the hall with his whole body, refusing to let me turn back, and I had thought it was more of his foolishness. It was not foolishness. The wolf knew before I did. The wolf always knows first. Sigun rose during the open court, when grievances could be spoken, and she spoke mine, my king. Her voice carried. She had been raised to make halls listen. Before the naming, a matter of the pack's safety, There has been talk, you have heard it, we have all heard it, of your beast's strange devotion to a low servant of this keep. A stillroom omega. We have all been kind. We have all called it a passing thing. She let her gaze travel back to me, and the whole hall turned with it, hundreds of faces, and I felt myself become very small and very visible at once. But it is not passing. And I have learnt why. She held up a small clay vial, found in her room. Among a horde of objects taken from all over this keep, the king's own things among them. She turned the vial in the light. Hester the healer will tell you there are droughts that cloud a wolf's judgment, that bind a beast's senses to a scent, that make a great wolf trail a low girl like a pup after a bone. She has been drugging her king, bewitching his beast to climb the ranks on her back. I name her for it, here, before the packs, and I ask the penalty the law demands. The penalty the law demands for an omega who ensorcels an alpha is death. The hall went into uproar, and through the noise I watched it nearly work. I watched it land. Because it was clever, it explained everything everyone had seen with their own eyes. The spoons, the fish, the wolf at my door, the king who let me laugh, every strange, soft, public thing the beast had done for 2 weeks. She handed them all a reason that let them keep being afraid of him, and people will always reach for the reason that costs them the least. I saw Edric, his second, go still with doubt. I saw the Hollowmere warriors set their hands to their belts. I saw the king's face, up on the days, go to that stillness I had learnt to read now, and I could not tell, for the first time, which stillness it was. And I understood that I could not prove a single thing. You cannot prove a negative. You cannot prove you did not bewitch a man whose own beast has spent a fortnight bringing you boots in front of the entire keep. There was a door behind me, the low folks' door, out to the kitchen stair, and it was open. The way every door in that keep seemed to be open lately, and I could have been through it and gone before the first warrior reached me. I want you to know, I thought about it. I thought about it hard. Then I thought about a man who had let every hall in the territories sing him a victory over his sister's grave, because the truth cost too much to say, and I found that I could not add one more lie to the pile of lies that had been told about that scar. Not even to save my own neck. So I did not run. I walked forward instead, into the open space before the dies, and I held out my hand for the vial. My lady says it clouds a wolf's senses. The hall quieted to hear me, because a small voice in a loud room is the one thing a crowd cannot resist. She says it is poison of a kind. Then she will not mind if I drink it. I am no wolf. It can do nothing to me her story does not require. I looked up at Sigun, and I kept my voice very even, the way you keep your hand even over a wound. Unless it is the other kind of poison, the kind that does not cloud a wolf at all. The kind a clever woman puts in a low girl's room so that the low girl can be made to confess to anything with a knife at her back. Which is it, my lady? Tell the hall which kind you brought. She did not answer fast enough. That was the whole of it. In the end, she did not answer fast enough, and a hall full of wolves heard the silence where a true answer should have been. But I did not know yet that it would be enough. So I took the vial out of her frozen hand, and I broke the wax, and I drank it. I will tell you that it burned. It went down like swallowing a coal, and the room tilted, and my legs forgot their purpose. And I gripped the edge of the dire step so hard the stone opened my palm, and my own blood was warm in my fist. It was not the cloud the wolf draught. It was the other kind. She had meant it to kill me slowly in a cell where no one would watch. I had made her watch it in her own hall instead. The cost was real. I want that to be true in your hearing, the way it was true on my tongue. I chose it knowing it might be the end of me. Because some lies you cannot let stand even at that price. And then the hall was moving, and the king was off the dais, and he reached me before I went down, and I felt the great steadiness of him take my weight, and I heard distantly, through the roar of whatever was in me, his voice go out across the packs. And it was not still any more. It was the loudest I ever heard him, before or since. Hester, the black root, the chalk, all of it, now, then, to the hall, to all of them. In a voice that did not shake, she drank what Sigun swore was harmless. Look at her and call it harmless again. I dare any wolf in this hall. No one did. What he did next he did with me half-conscious, and held upright in the curve of his arm, and Hester's bitter chalk being worked past my lips, and he did it knowing exactly what it would cost him. And he did it anyway, and that is the part the songs will never get right. Because the songs do not know how to sing a man giving up the only armour he has. You all want to know why my beast chose her. He said it quiet, and the quiet carried further than shouting. I will tell you, and then there will be no more talk of draughts and bewitching, because what I am about to say no bewitched man would ever say. And you will all know it for the truth, by the fact that it costs me everything to say it at all. He touched the scar. I felt the hall stop breathing. You sing this as Dashian. I have let you. It is not Dashian. There was a sick rogue in the high forest 9 years ago, and it came for the children, and I was not fast enough. This is the mark of the night my sister Astrid died in my arms, and there was no victory in it, and there has never been a victory in it, and I have let you sing it as one, because I could not stand to say her name in a full hall, and watch you pity me. His arm tightened around me. This woman laughed at it. In this hall. And do you know she is the only soul in 9 years who looked at this mark and did not see Astrid dying. She saw a tired man making a face about his dinner. She gave me one moment where it was only a scar. His voice did, finally, break, just slightly, on the next words, and he let it. No potion does that. You cannot brew that. My beast knew before I did what it meant to be seen as a man instead of a wound, and it went and brought her my sister's wolf because it understood, long before I would let myself, that I would rather be known by her than feared by all of you. There is your bewitching. Now send for the Holomere Lord, and tell him his daughter poisoned a healer in my hall, and somebody find me whether this woman is going to live. Because I find I cannot do this part stilly any more. I did live. I will spare you the 3 days of it, because they were not interesting from the inside, mostly ceiling, and Hester's hands, and a bitterness in my mouth that took a week to fade, except for one thing, which is that every time I surfaced, he was there, not seated in state, on a stool by a stillroom cot too small for either of us, holding the carved wooden wolf in both hands like a man at prayer, and when I finally came up for good and stayed up, the first thing I saw was that he had set Astrid's wolf on the shelf beside my collection of stolen spoons, where it has lived ever since. Sigun? I asked. My voice came out a ruin. Gone to Holomere, in disgrace. Her father chose his border alliance over her lie. He is no fool. And a lord who poisons in my hall is a war I would have given him. He was very careful with the words, the way he was careful with everything. It cost me nothing I will miss. The East will hold without her in my chair. And the songs. I made myself look at him. You unmade your own songs. In front of every pack. He was quiet. Then he reached over and, very gently, turned my hand palm up. The one I had split open on the day step, now bound in Hester's linen. And he looked at it the way I had once seen him look at his own wound. Like a thing that should not have had to happen. Let them make new ones, he said. I have been asked, since, what the kiss was like, by which the asker usually means they want the part the songs are coy about. I will tell you the truth, which is less than they want and more than they expect. It was 3 days later, when I could stand. He came to say something formal and prepared, some careful king's speech he had clearly built like a campaign, and he got 4 words into it before he gave up entirely. And what broke open in me when he finally stopped being careful was not anything I have words for even now. I knew is the closest I can come. Whatever I had been refusing to let myself want, I stopped refusing it. That was all. That was everything. He pulled back and looked at me like a man checking the ground would hold, and I laughed at his face, again, because his face still does the thing. It will always do the thing, and this time, in front of no one, he let himself laugh back. He claimed me before the pax at the next moon, which is the part the new songs do get right. A knee bent, his, not mine, the king of the Iron Territories, down on one knee on the dais stone before a stillroom omega with yarrow under her nails, and a title spoken. And the empty chair beside the wolf throne filled at last by someone no one had seen coming, least of all me. The court did not all love it. Some of them love it now. Some of them are still deciding. I find I do not spend much of my warmth on the ones still deciding. Here is how it is, 6 months on, since you have come this far with us, and I think you have earned the end of it. The keep is warmer than it was. I do not mean the hearths. I mean that a man who held himself still for 9 years has slowly, carefully, in front of people, begun to set the stillness down, and a court takes its weather from its king, and so the whole great cold place has thawed a degree at the edges where no one is watching closely enough to disapprove. His wolf still brings me things. This will never stop. I have made my peace with it. Last week it was a single enormous turnip, laid on the threshold of our chambers with the same grave pride as the first stolen spoon. And Halvor walked in to find me holding it, and his own beast looking up at me for approval. And the king of the Iron Territories put his hand over the lower half of his face, over the scar, and his shoulders moved, and he did not bother any more to pretend he was not laughing. A letter came, too, the day I started writing this down for you. From the village I was born in, the one that gave its omega to the keep, and forgot her, asking, now that she is Luna, whether she remembers them. I remember them. I will answer kindly. But I notice it took a crown for them to recall my name, and I notice that the man who first remembered it had no reason to and every reason not to, and between those 2 facts is the whole of what I have learnt about being seen. Astrid's wolf still sits on the shelf. He kept it there. We do not talk about her often, but we talk about her, which Hester tells me is 9 years more than he managed before, and once, late, he told me the rest of that night. All of it. The part not even the truth-telling in the hall contained, and I held the worst of it the way the wolf asked me to, and I was not careless with it, and that is the only achievement of my life I would put above learning not to faint in a great hall. People ask me how I dared, how a still-room girl dared laugh at the Alpha King's scar. They want it to have been brave. It was not brave. I was tired, and I was hungry, and his face did a thing, and my brain gave up, and I laughed, and the most dangerous man alive went very, very quiet, and I thought I was in enormous trouble. I was. I just had the kind of trouble wrong. So tell me. And I mean it. I want to know, because the great hall is quiet tonight, and Halvor is asleep, and the turnip is, inexplicably, still on the shelf. Did you see it coming? Did you guess what the scar truly was before I did? Or did he keep his stillness from you the way he kept it from me? Tell me where you are listening from tonight, and tell me whether you would have run for the open door or walked toward the vial, because I have a wager with a sleeping king about which kind of person finds their way to this side of a story. And if a woman laughing her way into more trouble than she bargained for is a thing you would like to hear again, stay. Follow along. His wolf has a great many spoons left to steal, and I intend to keep every one.